vincontroller.eu. Check vehicle history for every used car in Europe. Welcome to another Boostmania International video. Today we're working on the Audi A4 we got for free. And today we're at hatiar.eu. And they're going to be responsible for servicing the LPG system on our A4. So, let's come inside and see what's going on. So, as you can see, we're standing inside the workshop next to the owner. And in front of me, on the ground, is a brand new LPG tank. It's going to replace the old tank, since that one is 10 years old. Why do we have to change these? Well, firstly, all this is defined by the law. The international European law states that the lifespan of an LPG tank is to be defined by the manufacturer. In our case, that's 10 years since the day of production. Anytime after this date, you need a new tank. So this is exactly our case. Yes, it's all done for safety. The tank that's in the car right now is in the place of a space saver tire. And the space saver is just thrown in the trunk. We're going to throw in a repair set, since those take up way less space. Now, my question is, are there other types of these tanks? Well, then there's the standard tank. And it's always mounted behind the last row of seats. But that's only used in cars where there's no way you could use a tire-shaped tank. Yeah, that's true. Not many cars nowadays have the provisions for this space, like some pickups or vans. Well, it's one thing to just place the tank somewhere, but you have to be mindful of many security regulations and rules. If there's no space for the tire-shaped tank, we use the standard one. There's not many of those cases, but they do happen. I'm guessing these tanks come in various sizes and volumes. Yeah, there's an unbelievable amount of variety in these. From small sizes, with a smaller volume, up to some fairly large disc tanks. Plenty of volumes to choose from. But of course, the vehicle must have the space to fit the tank. So do you choose by weight? Well, it's more about the size and the mounting options. The tank has to be mounted solidly. Okay then, let's go mount this tank to the car, and then we're going to move on to other parts of the LPG system. Okay, let's go. While the rear tank is getting mounted, we found some more problems with the system. We weren't even able to turn the LPG system on. So of course, there was a problem. So, what did we find out? Well, while going through the cables, we came into a situation where the device acted dead. It didn't react to any inputs or impulses, and it couldn't connect to the diagnostics. Upon further inspection, we found that there was a cold contact on the grounding circuit of the system, which is very important. A device that's not grounded doesn't work. After we remedied that, the device seems to be fully functional currently. After we change the rear tank, we're going to fill it up, and we're going to use the diagnostic software to fine-tune the settings. We have to set it up so that it works properly, because we can't give the car back to the customer otherwise. There's plenty of LPG cars for sale right now. What should the current and future owners of an LPG system-equipped car be mindful of? Well, the manufacturer states that you have to check the whole system at least once a year, even if it's not in regular use. So it's just a yearly service appointment, right? Yeah, it's a maintenance service where we check the filters that are in the system and replace the old ones. Next up, we check whether the whole system seals properly, because for safety reasons, it's very important for an LPG system not to leak. So that's all getting done on this car. Yes, we'll definitely do this with this car as well. Next up, we rechecked our work and checked the emissions. The legislative states this clearly. The car can't produce more emissions than the gasoline-only version. The car also has to run smooth on LPG. Said simply, the car has to run like it has no LPG system in it. Alright? I'm really hoping everything works out the way it's supposed to. I hope the car runs and drives on LPG, so that we can save some money on the way back to Senec. You're coming home for half the price. So, the car is back together in one piece, but we have a small problem. This does happen, although not too often, to be honest. We found out that the LPG tank that's installed in the car is bigger than it's supposed to be based on the documents. The one in the documents is a different volume. This is something that shouldn't really happen, but it still does happen sometimes. We get 1 or 2 cases like this a year. It's always a problem when the tank does not line up with what the documents are saying. So, what does that mean in a legislative sense? Well, from a legislative point of view, this device is not installed in a configuration it's supposed to be. That might be one of the reasons why you might not pass a roadworthiness checkup, so we wouldn't go through emissions. Exactly. As I said, these do happen often, but most of the time, the previous owner wasn't satisfied with the LPG-only range. Maybe they got the tank changed. There are cases where people do this in their garage. They just replace it for a bigger one. Of course, the documents stay untouched, and that's how we get to this problem. Sadly, this was one of those few vehicles. In order for us to get this car into a state where it's legislatively sound, we had to replace the tank for one with a more suitable volume. So now we finally have the correct tank, the one that's supposed to be there. That's right. The car is now in accordance to the regulations. You'll pass the roadworthiness checks like nothing. That's great news, because our next steps will take us to a roadworthiness test. We're going for a technical and emissions checkup, along with a checkup of the LPG system. Now that the car's tank is finally filled with LPG, we managed to actually get it running on LPG. My question is, what are the next steps? We checked the tank for any leaks, but it doesn't seem to be leaking anywhere. The next step is that we're going to take a computer and go for a control and calibration drive. During this drive, we're going to configure the LPG system so that it does comply with the emission standards. We will also measure emissions separately. So this is measured during the drive? No, the emissions always get measured statically. First the idle emissions, and then emissions at some revs. The exact way they measure it at the roadworthiness checks. And what are the differences between LPG and CNG? Because to be honest, I still don't understand the difference. So, what is it? Yeah, many customers like to keep them both under one umbrella. For them, the car is on gas. But it does matter which one you pump into a car. The LPG stands for liquefied petroleum gasoline, which is produced from crude oil. And CNG stands for compressed natural gas, which has a different origin. They're both working on the same principle, but they're both different commodities. When you pump CNG into a tank, it gets compressed under some pressure, but it still stays in the gaseous form. The pressure is approximately 220 bar when the tank is full. That's way higher than any pressure you can find in an LPG system. Those usually only get up to 7 to 10 bar, depending on the outside temperature. LPG also stays in liquid state, so we don't need to compress it as much as CNG. The biggest difference is range. If you want 400 kilometers of range, usually a 50-liter tank is enough. Of course, this does vary based on the engine. If you want a bigger range with CNG, you have to install multiple tanks, because each one is limited to 220 bar of pressure. So, these are the main differences between the fuels. But the whole system is not cross-compatible. So the LPG system components are going to be completely different from the tank to the pressure regulator. It's a completely different commodity in a different machine designed for different pressures. In the end, the two systems are very much different from each other. Many people that want to import used cars from other countries might order a bi-fuel car, and there were a few cases where they were expecting an LPG car, but in the end a CNG car shows up. You have to be mindful when you're picking the system, because this can be a nasty surprise for you, since the network of CNG stations is far less developed than the LPG one. When it comes to the fuel quality, do you have any recommendations where I should fill up? Well, with the CNG, this problem doesn't exist. It's the same around the whole world. But with LPG, it's really important to check whether you're filling it with an LPG that's supposed to go into the car. This can't be the same gas that's used for heating or fuel for stoves. That kind of LPG, let's call it stovetop LPG, can actually create some serious damage in the car, usually irreversible. It's an LPG of lower quality, and its ingredients are not controlled, which can result in a pricey repair. Gotcha. So we have to be careful where you're filling up with LPG. Of course, all I can recommend is to stay with the tried and trusted filling stations. Based on the years of experience, even from other customers, some filling stations do not have these problems. It's all connected to the quality of the LPG. It's very important for the longevity of the car. Yeah, well, the engine has to work the way it's designed to. Exactly. Thank you very much for helping us get LPG to this car again. That way, its new owners can drive economically and safe. The only thing that's left now is the test drive. Let's go for it. Let's go. Another day has passed. We are at Racing, and sadly, I have some bad news for you. At Racing, they checked the new device that's apparently been installed in the car. This should have been repaired and leak-free. We were leaving Hatyar.eu thinking everything's correct, and we even got the new documents with the LPG. We even received the invoice for the work. Sadly, the injectors that were busted before are still busted, by which I mean not repaired, and now they're causing a vacuum leak. What's even worse is that there's a chance that the LPG is escaping through those holes. The whole car can burst up in flames. I'm not an LPG professional. If this is how it's supposed to look, please correct me. But when it comes to repairs, I only consider it repaired if something's been done. Now, what's even worse than that is that I drove this car all the way from Zvolen to Bratislava. That's 200 kilometers. Now I have to say, the car did drive okay. There was nothing that made me think there's something wrong with the car. But this is an issue that we have before visiting Hatyar, and it should have been looked into. Well, sadly, I have to end today's video like this. We're going to search for a better shop that's going to repair these injectors the way they're supposed to. All I need is their stamp after the job, and after that, the car can go for a roadworthiness check. And we're all going to be praying that the car is finally done the way it's supposed to be. Because in all my good conscience, I can't give a car like this to somebody. Never mind that this is a giveaway car. I will not put a dangerous car in somebody else's hands. I'd rather invest 100 or 1,000 euros more just to know it's all in order. Now, everybody that has an LPG car, I'd love you to leave a comment saying what kind of experience you have with places like this. I'm sure there are some good shops, but I'm also sure there's the worst ones. And sadly, I'll see you in the next episode.